Palantir is one of the most controversial tech companies out there. From a political, ethical, and moral standpoint, tech is very homogenous. They won't work with certain branches of government. Palantir breaks that. They aggressively work with ICE. They aggressively work with the government branches and organizations you don't know as much about. They aggressively want to make Western civilization stronger.
Welcome to the Tech and Tea podcast. I'm your host, Gav Blacks. We're here today with Alex Finn and Penny 2X, and we are going to be diving into what the heck is Palantir? What does this company do? It's on everyone's radar now because it's up almost 500% in the past year and up over 1,000% in the last 5 years. And people are hearing big words, AI. They see big figures, Peter Thiel, Alex Karp. But I think a lot of people still have a ton of questions as to what is the company, what does it actually do, and why should we be paying attention to it? And really what we're going to answer today is that last part. Why should you be paying attention to this? And who better to talk about an AI and a data company with than with Penny and Alex? That's my thoughts here. So listen, there's plenty of Palantir experts out there. They'll give you every number and piece of the stock. Today, we're going to focus on the tech, the leadership, and the ethos of the company and bring you an overall understanding of what it is and what they do. I'm going to give each of the co-hosts here a quick moment just to share quick thoughts. And then we're going to actually kick things off with a video of Alex Karp, because for people who, you know, a lot of people have heard about Alex Karp, and I actually read his recent book that he released. And the book focused on this idea and this concept of America has gotten soft, right? We take any idea and we say, oh, you had an idea. Here's a participation trophy. And Alex Karp says that concept is ruining the Western culture. You have to get back to a place where you can tell people their ideas suck, they're awful, and come back to me with something better and let the best rise to the top. Really was my interpretation of it. So with that being said, Alex, let me turn over to you first. You know, when you hear Palantir, having done some research into it, for people, what should they know here? And then walk over to Penny, and then we'll watch this video.
So Palantir is one of the most controversial tech companies out there. And the reason being, for anyone who has ever worked in tech, been in tech, from a political, ethical, and moral standpoint, tech is very homogenous. I've worked for several tech companies in my life, and the way they kind of work is very homogenous. And what I mean by that is they have the same moral standards where they won't work with, for instance, ICE, right? They won't work with deportations. They won't work with certain branches of government. Palantir breaks that. They break the homogeny. They aggressively work with ICE. They aggressively work with a lot of the shadier, I don't want to call them shadier, but you know, the government branches and organizations you don't know as much about. They aggressively want to make Western civilization stronger. They aggressively do not sell to China, right? And so I think we're going to be speaking a lot today about why they're so controversial, why they're so different, and how they're just different than any other tech company out there, and how they try to break the mold of the way tech works. And I'm excited to dive into it.
Yeah, back in the day, it was like unspeakable for a tech company, especially a Valley company, to get involved in politics and especially in war, right? Like they just completely stay out of war. But Alex Karp and Peter Thiel and Palantir have chosen a side. They chose the West, and it is something else to listen to Alex Karp talk about. You know, I actually think the way that you summarize his book, I mean, it nails it, right? Like the West has lost our focus on merit. That's what got us to where we are in the first place. And I'm super happy to have a company working on returning that. But yeah, let's dive in. Let's learn more about Alex.
Yeah, so let's roll through here. Quick video of Alex Karp speaking so people can understand. And he really does speak like this always.
We're doing it. We're doing it, and I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am. Let's not talk to analysts about the burden of being right, our burdens of investing in ontology, our burdens of actually looking at the math, the burden of reading what the rule of 40 is, the burden of being honest about what an enterprise software company is, or the burden of explaining to your friends that you're really happy. Maybe we should just stop talking about it. I'm very happy to have you along for the journey, and you are partners for us. Every Palantirian, we are crushing it. Everyone else who's listening, we are dedicating our company. We have dedicated our company to the service of the West and the United States of America, and we're super proud of the role we play, especially in places we can't talk about. And we love our success in the U.S. and globally. Also, we are doing well in the United Kingdom and many other places. Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And we hope you're in favor of that. We hope you're enjoying being a partner, and we're really happy and very, very focused on what we're doing. Thank you for your time. Holy
crap, there's so much packed in that short video. Like, the first thing that I noticed is that he refers to Palantir investors as Palantirians, right? Like, there is definitely a cult of Palantir that is developing. And they even have nicknames for Alex, right? I think they call him Daddy Carp, right? So he calls them the Palantirians, and the Palantirians call him Daddy Carp. And then he goes on to talking about killing the enemies, right? I mean,
he used in the same sentence, he said, "We're so happy to be doing this." And earlier in that sentence, he said, "Sometimes we have to kill our enemies." And, those just got used in the same sentence there. And it's very rare that you'll ever hear a CEO, even of defense companies, right, come out and so vocally speak about what their mission is and what they're going to have to do. But they're very clear about this, right? They're building a company that is going to use data and AI to protect the United States of America and its interests. And it's going to do that by collecting information on its enemies, analyzing that information. And so I think this is a good part to roll into Palantir and the differentiation. They service individual people, right, and businesses, but they also have a huge, and this is where most of their money comes from. I believe it's actually just changing now, though. A Gotham Division is what they call it, which services the government. Alex, can you explain a little bit for people as to what does this Gotham Division do? What are they doing for the government?
Yeah, so the people really don't know this as much, but the actual first investment check to Palantir was actually by the CIA. The CIA was the first people to invest into Palantir. And so I think about 55% of their revenue is from the government, and their Gotham product is what actually is the product the government uses. And so collects all the data from the government, is able, wraps it in AI so you can, get better insights from your data. It gives them opinions on what they should be doing with their data. And, one thing they pride themselves on, Palantir, is they create software with an opinion. Right. And so the software collects their data and then tells them what they should be doing with the data, what actions they should be taking, and things like that. And so the government is is the biggest customer of Palantir, and that's what their Gotham product services.
So Alex, you're talking a lot about they're collecting all the data, right? And they're wrapping the data in AI. I want to get a little bit more granular. What type of data is the government supplying to Palantir? And then what does that mean they're wrapping it in AI? How do they actually make this data useful?
Well, it's everything. And that's what makes Palantir interesting, is it can really handle any type of data, right? So they have customers from the government to the military, to the CIA, to Tyson Foods. And so they use the same software for shipping chicken nuggets as they do for sending missiles across the world to blow people up, or for arresting illegal immigrants, right? It's the same software that wraps all that data. And that's what makes them really interesting software. Is it's very plug and play, where it can wrap all your data about the production lines for a chicken sandwich for Tyson Foods and give you AI analysis on that data and tell you what to do next, so that maybe your line worker can use it to see, okay, I need to wrap the chicken this way or slaughter the chicken this way. But then you can use that same software for the CIA, who, okay, I can arrest the person this way or that way. So it's very plug and play with any type of data, where you plug your data source in, and makes all the data speak the same type of language, so you can funnel it into a database automatically, and then wraps it in an LLM so that you can ask questions to the data and also have the LLM give you recommendations on how to use the data as well.
Another interesting feature that it has is that it inherits the security from whatever the underlying data source is. So like traditionally in an enterprise, if you need data from multiple locations to create a report, you sort of individually pull it in, maybe to a data warehouse with like its own set of permissions, or you create reports and you assign permissions to that report. But then, if you modify the underlying data source's security, it's lost. Or if you add someone's security in a different place, it becomes more confusing. So what they've done with Palantir is if you have access to all of the data sources used in the report, you get access to that. Otherwise, you don't, right? It's like you need it all. So it makes managing all of the data a lot easier. And one of the I think the initial use cases was to spot fraud, right? So really they can ask any sort of question to any sort of type of data. If you bring in people's financial records, maybe you can find terrorists, maybe you can find fraudsters. There's just what it is they call it an operating system, right? And it's just an operating system for your data.
Okay, so I hear exactly what you guys are saying. And I think that the key is that really what they're trying to help companies process is messy data, right? So where there's no perfect format. I think that that's the big difference between what they do and a lot of other companies. If I have a spreadsheet or something like that, I don't need a crazy LLM, right? If it's already put together and it's organized, I can go ahead and I can use a general AI to sort through that. The idea of Palantir is much, much, much larger data sets with a lot more messy data, right? And so when you have maybe 1 million emails, let's say, that have been tracked, and potential scammers or terrorists are sending these around the world, there's no clean data set there, right? There's no one thing that can be pulled. You're just uploading thousands, 100,000s, millions of messages and saying, okay, pull from this and tell me what my extraction should be, right? What should my lessons be and what am I learning? And I think that that's what makes it so powerful. It is a little wild to me how long they've been around. They started this company back in 2003, Peter Thiel and Alex Karp. And so you're looking at over 20 years of work. But for most people, they're just starting to use AI right on an everyday basis now. So I'm curious.
The original use case for Palantir?
Oh, tell. The CIA.
The original use case was detecting fraud in PayPal, right? So this is obviously started by PayPal Mafia, Palantir, Peter Thiel. And so they built it to detect fraud in PayPal, like PayPal transactions in a post 9/11 world. And then they realize like, okay, cool. This actually is like a actual powerful use case for countering terrorism, because they're like trying to find fraud and terrorism transactions in PayPal. This is actually a good anti-counter-terrorist software. Like, let's start working with the government to counter terrorism. And that's how it evolved from there. So it's all about finding scam transactions, and then it turned into like a counter-terrorism software for the government, and then it just kind of found its footing from there.
Yeah. So one thing I want to show people now is just looking at their Q1 income statement right here. So this is nicely broken down in graphic format, which I always love to see. And this is showing people where that money's coming from and where it ends up going. And so as we talked about, government's a big portion, right? So in Q1, you had 487 million, pretty nice growth year over year, 45%. And then the commercial side, where we talked about like a Tyson Foods or whoever, right? These companies can use them, and that's creeping up. That's at 397 million, also growing a decent amount. So it's nice to see that they do have that split, just in case, you have something like Doge comes through and wipes out some government contracts. Wait, pull that back up for me for a second. Back on screen. Still just walking through a little bit of some of the thoughts there. One of the pieces to how it gets broken down. Well, this one's good as well. Just kind of showing government versus commercial revenue scaling over time from FinChat. Appreciate that. But looking back to the income statement for a moment, just want to show people, like, as it breaks down, we're ultimately, okay, well, where's it going for profit? Some of these other details, right? You can see what are your expenses, cost of revenue there, what's your gross profit, and then the real breakdown there. So you have R&D, which I actually think is not a significant, crazy portion here right now, right? It's at 15% of revenue. It's $135 million, but it makes sense that they'd be investing in that. You have your sales and marketing. You have your general administrative expenses that are coming through here, but then a pretty nice net profit margin up there, right? At about 25%. on that 25% margin, and that's $218 million. And then the interest there of $50 million. So that's not bad at the end of the day right now. If you're in tech and you're in a company that's scaling and growing rapidly and you're investing back into the company heavily into R&D and other areas, to be creating 25% profit margin. So just a interesting breakdown for people that maybe aren't super familiar with this, but are now looking at it and saying, hey, this stock is going absolutely crazy. I'm hearing all the things about it. I should look into it. Now you're getting a bit of an overview of, okay, what do they do? Where does that money come from? How much do they actually keep of it? Where does it go? Curious if you guys have any thoughts on this.
Well, I think it's interesting to see a 20-year-old company 5x in a year and then look at an income statement and see a really healthy profit margin, right? I mean, I guess you would expect that, but when there's 5x in a year, I would much more expect crazy amounts of growth or some like tectonic shift in terms of the where industry or government is going. And I think that's probably mostly what we're seeing here is that people are coming to the understanding that AI is eating software, right? And not only is AI eating software, but Palantir is doing it both on the commercial and on the government side, which means that they have the potential to eat just an entire multiple industries, right? I think the field for them is very green. That we're still in the early innings of this AI takeover, but you got to love software, right? I mean, to be investing heavily in R&D, to be growing like that, I'm sure that they are doing like crazy recruiting and crazy lobbying and everything else, and to still pull 25% margins. I mean, that's beautiful.
Well, they're also willing to do things that other software companies aren't willing to do. I don't want to name them by names, but I've worked for several software companies, and like they were very vocal. We will not work with ICE. We will not sell software to ICE. And when they were like negotiating with ICE, the employees were like, no, we're going to quit our jobs if you sell software to ICE. And so they're like, oh yeah, we won't do that. We won't do that. And like the difference between Palantir and these other tech companies is 99% of tech companies are just like virtue signaling liars where they're like, oh, we won't work with these government agencies. We won't work with ICE. We won't do this. We care about the people, we're all about you. And it's like, then the founders and board members are all billionaires. All the salespeople are doing coke in the bathroom. It's like, okay, well, why are you pretending to be like this, like do-good-all angel like company when, that in reality, that's not what you're like at all. Palantir's like, here's our set of morals and ethics. We want the West to win, and we'll work with anyone to make sure the West is winning and that we have safety at home. And so they're like one of the only companies willing to work with, software companies willing to work with like ICE. And so they can probably set the price, right? Since there's not really any competition there at all. And it's probably another reason why they make so much cash too, is they're willing to do the things no other tech companies are willing to do.
I saw a clip that mentioned, they have so much government contract data even that it gives them an advantage in negotiating contracts. I mean, imagine using their own product to sort of help them figure out what the ideal price is. And I'm sure they probably do. I think an interesting bit is there's so much that they can't talk about, right? They can't confirm or deny. And I think that adds like some mystery and mystique to the company too. So like rumors that Palantir was involved in hunting down Osama bin Laden, right? I mean, like that's something that you wouldn't normally consider as a product from a tech company. But how much is that worth to the government? How much can they charge to help find Osama bin Laden? I think, super interesting to see a tech founder who is embracing strength, right? It's like no longer taboo to be strong. He's basically saying, we're going to be the strongest. We're going to make our military so strong that the rest of the world fears us, and Palantir wants to play a big role in that.
Well, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that, because there are a lot of people that are transparently scared about Palantir, right? And for a couple of reasons. And I would just go through a couple of the reasons that I was noting down. One, I think the number one concern is, and this is like overall what covers it, is privacy concerns. And this goes back for me to Edward Snowden kind of blowing the cover and the whistle, and showing that the government was tracking, the NSA was tracking so many people so much deeper than we believed. And Palantir software, it can analyze personal data, where you've been, who you've called, what you've posted online, right? All these different pieces. And when governments use it, I think there's a lot of concern whenever the government has your personal data and is utilizing it. And again, just to be clear, it's not like they're just turning over all of your personal data to Palantir, but they're using a plug and play framework from Palantir to implement it. So the concern comes back to Palantir. And like Alex mentioned, they worked with ICE. What were they doing with ICE? They were helping them track undocumented immigrants, right? Like that was what they were doing with them. And they were tracking this data. So I think that there's this combination of privacy concerns and secrecy concerns, right? Palantir, and probably for good reason, doesn't really like to tell people how their software works, what it's being used for at any given moment, right? They like to make people nervous a little bit in that area, and they're trying to make the enemies nervous, obviously. But sometimes it can make people at home nervous as well. And then I think you bundle secrecy and privacy with power concerns, right? And saying, hey, this is a company that has a lot of power. Whoever has access to those tools really can see so much and do so much in the world. And I'm just curious to get your guys' thoughts on, when we look at other companies like ChatGPT, like they've been every part of them scrutinized, right? What's going on here? We can dig into the middle of it. Grok, you can see throughout, right? So on and so forth. Palantir, there's a lot more secrecy to what they do and how it's shrouded. And maybe that's necessary for the business, but it causes people a lot of concern. And I'm just curious to get your guys' thoughts there.
Well, in terms of being worried about privacy, my preference is that the government stays out of our business, right? Like I would much prefer that. So given that we know that they're not going to, though, I would rather, I guess, an American company be the best at spying than someone somewhere else. I think that this technology is going to be built irregardless of whether we like it or not. So, I'm not so super nervous about Palantir existing. I think I would be much more nervous if I was, maybe like a career criminal or an illegal alien or an enemy of the United States. But I think privacy is done, right? Like whether we like it or not, my sense is that privacy is over, and it probably has been over since the advent of the internet. And I mean, if you look at China, there's video cameras literally everywhere. And I think the rest of the world is moving in that direction too. I think there's not a whole lot we can do about it. So it's like, do you want to be in the lead or not? Is sort of my perspective on that.
And I think another reason they're probably secretive is if you read 0 to 1, Peter Thiel's book, he talks about how he hates competition. He actually thinks competition is bad for capitalism because then companies, the margins go away and they can't really reinvest and improve if they're, at a race to the bottom with their competition. And I bet the reason why they don't talk a ton about what they do is because they don't want competition. They don't want other companies doing what they do and copying them and doing the same thing. Peter Thiel's very anti-competition. So I bet a big part of the secrecy too is they just don't want other Palantirs out there. They want to get ahead. They want to build the technology before other people figure out whatever it is the hell they do.
Alex,
it's a big moat. It's a big moat. And also they have the data moat too, right? Like imagine by now the CIA being the original investor, how many different data sources from secretive government agencies are plugged in to Palantir, and all of the work that it's taken to do that over 20 years. I think it'll be super hard to replace them. If you don't know what they do and they're like so deeply sort of rooted in the government and all sorts of secret things, I think Palantir is here to stay.
Yeah, it definitely gives them an edge. I want to just bring back for a second to something that Penny said and ask your thoughts, Alex. Do you think privacy is done for? Is that something that people should just accept and say, hey, at least my private information's in the hands of people who probably care more about me than my enemy?
Yeah, I think privacy is toast. I don't think it exists anymore. I don't think there's a single piece of information about us that the government doesn't have about us. I think that's over. Tech is too advanced. We put all our data on the internet. We give it to any company, and then every company is hacked and has data leaks. There's no company that hasn't been hacked and hasn't had a data leak. I believe if you go on the dark web, you can find out literally anything you want about anybody. And it's the reason why I'm never going to get a Neuralink is I think the last place that we have for privacy that will ever exist is inside our brains. I think if there's anything you want to keep a secret, the only place to have it is inside your head. Even if you don't even use electronics and you just say it out loud, everything has microphones now. Our phones, speakers in our house, everything is microphone. So we wear it around our neck as well, right? Like privacy is toast. We carry microphones around with us everywhere. So I believe our last bastion of privacy is our brains. And if we start putting chips in our brains, then it's over. There's no more secrets ever. It's done. So yeah, privacy is dead and gone.
You guys ever test just to see if people around you can read your brain? You know, think something real fucked up, just see if they freak out.
I'm constantly thinking fucked up things. So if they can read our brains, then I'm canceled.
I know. If you can read people's brains, you gotta be real good at pretending that you can't. I feel like otherwise you just walk around shocked and scared all day. You guys know where the word Palantir comes from?
I do. It's that like hard crystal sort of look into the future or the past thing. Wasn't it from Lord of the Rings?
It is from Lord of the Rings. It is a crystal that you can look into that does show you the future, I believe.
So another interesting bit about that was that sometimes it's inaccurate, right? Like the Palantir from the movie could be manipulated. And I think that leads into some of the privacy fears and stuff like that, right? Like you could, if you were like a very powerful user of the Palantir, you could decide of what it's showing you, what to share with the other people and what not. And, you know, when you have the power to look so deeply into data, you can sort of pick and choose of the insights that you find, what it is you share and how you use them, present a very convincing argument, you know, that may or may not be the whole picture. I think that's like an interesting take on Palantir.
Did you guys watch the movie Snowden?
No.
Okay. Are you familiar with the NSA leak?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just vividly remember this. I happened to be in a group at the time, and a woman from the NSA was a guest speaker to our group. It was like a little business group. And she was like coming and like lamenting, like, oh, all of our lives got changed. We had to move and stuff. And I was looking at this from the other side, and I was like, you were like spying on all of us. And you got caught and showed it. And so I think that this is like a new region where, one, you know, Palantir's now working with the government, but it's more like out in the open and approved. I think people know that this is happening. So that circles back to what you said, Penny, which is people have just accepted that the privacy is gone, right? People did not accept that with Snowden. They said, what, you're tracking all these calls and all these details. This shouldn't be happening. It was an outrage. Now it's just kind of like generally accepted. And so it does make me wonder where things are going to be in 10 to 15 years, right? With people just becoming more and more relaxed with that data being used and taken. And then for Palantir, I do think that it's really cool, everything they do with the government, but it's also interesting to see them continuing to diversify on the private sector side, because it feels like there's a boatload of money to be made there, right? Why would you work with the government originally? Great clients, long-term clients, lots of money coming from there, right? Great budgets. But now you can see that they're building up on the private side, and Airbus, right, as a client right there, and so on and so forth with supply chain management and other pieces. It just feels like it can go into all areas of their life. In fact, I could see even us, you know, like Alex, I don't know about with Creator Buddy, but there could be programs that we start using here where it's just like, hey, it'd be really helpful to have something that I can just dump all my data into, and it starts, you know, doing pattern recognition for me and giving me feedback.
Well, I think what separates Palantir and makes it really interesting is that, as I said earlier, it's software with an opinion. It's not you just dump things in and then it summarizes it, right? Like it actually gives you recommendations of what to do. That's what I'm trying to do with Creator Buddy is, you know, it takes all your Twitter data, it takes all your tweets, it takes everyone you talk to, your replies, and then gives you analysis around it. But how do you take it to a point where it's actually telling you what to do autonomously, right? How do you get to a point where, you know, it's not just some AI summary chat GPT, but it actually is like, hey, by the way, this is what you got to do. This is what's going to work well for you. You know, I think that's the future of AI, is not just being able to summarize things really well, but now actually be able to form opinions and tell you exactly what to do and be more human-like in that way. And I think that's what makes Palantir very interesting.
I think if there ever is sort of competition from Palantir, if we're going to come at data from a different angle, it would be like the exact opposite, right? Like we're talking about how Palantir is super secretive and we don't know what they do, and they have access to all this data, but where does it even come from? We don't know, right? I think at some point, if we are to see that we no longer have privacy, what is the best outcome for us? And I think it's like Palantir is very limited access to that data. So anyone who can log into Palantir and has access to all the underlying data sources, they can now get those insights on that data. But that provides them with a very unfair power dynamic. Right now, one person knows things that the rest of the world don't, and they can use that to their advantage or against you. Whereas imagine if the data was open source, if it was like literally all of this data is just available to anyone. And because we know that nothing is private anyway, we would rather have everyone have our data than just a select few. So I think that's an interesting path that could present a threat to Palantir in the future. But I mean, it does require almost like a benevolent leader to create that. Like, how are they going to make money off of that? I don't know. I do think that it's an interesting angle, though.
Yeah, you guys hit on it pretty well. And I'm sure there's people that, you can go a lot deeper into this, right? Specific government contracts, clients, supply chain details along those lines. I encourage people to take a look into Alex Karp, read his last book so you can get an understanding of who he is. But I think there's just so many people with questions right now because you see sometimes the stock going and you're like, I have just no idea what they do, right? And I think for Palantir, everyone was saying AI, well, what does that mean? So hopefully this gave you a lot better understanding of who they are, what type of stuff they're doing, who their clients are, why people have concerns, where this could be going in the future. And in short, for me, you can look at traditional valuations. The stock is very extended, right? But this is the path of the future. It is being able to analyze large data sets, working with both governments and private institutions, right? They're giving themselves a lot of opportunity. And I think that that's what you want to see in companies that you're investing in, right? It's why people love Tesla. Tesla, it's not just for the cars, it's for Optimus, it's for full self-driving that's unsupervised, right? All these different pieces. And similar for Palantir, right? Just more and more opportunities for different business lines and ventures and continuing to expand outwards. And so that's kind of the vision for me. Come over to you guys real quick. Alex, any final thoughts from yourself as you look at this company? And also just curious, are you an investor? Have you considered investing?
I'm not an investor. I'm invested in two companies right now, Robinhood and Tesla. The only reason I'm not an investor is, I don't. Like a big part of what we talked about here was the fact that they're so secretive and so private about what it is they do. And while I believe in that mission, I don't want to put my money into things except unless I know exactly what they're doing, how they're getting there. What's great about Robinhood is they openly share everything they're doing and they still have no competition whatsoever. And I think that is unbelievably powerful position to be in where I can map out, because I know everything they're doing, how their next 10 years is going to look. And I can easily see in the next 10 years, they can 10x financial advice because of that, right? And so, because I believe in Palantir's mission statement and everything they're doing, but I'm not going to put my hard-earned dollars into something I just don't understand fundamentally, like on the deepest level. I'm rooting for them, and I hope they have success because their success means America's success, and I'm very pro-America. I love America. But from a monetary perspective, I want to be able to map out my dollars for the next 10 years, where they're going and how they're going to grow. So that's why I'm invested in Robinhood and Tesla. But I'm rooting for Palantir, right? I'm rooting for them hard because their success is our success. So, I love everything I hear from Alex Karp. I love his attitude. I love his no bullshit. I worked in tech for so long. I was in different tech companies for 12 years, and there's so much just bullshit and virtue signaling and lying. Palantir doesn't, you listen to Alex Karp, it's like, yeah, I want to kill people. Right. And there's no lying, there's no fluff, which I think is such a welcome change in tech. So I love it. I love Palantir. From an investment perspective, I just want to map out my dollars, and I can't do that with Palantir.
I feel the same way about Karp. I think the culture in America has demonized strength and demonized people like Karp for too long. And I agree with him. I think it put the West in a really bad position. It made us extremely vulnerable because the rest of the world doesn't care if you want to be nice, right? Like they want to win and they're going to come after you. So I love to have tough, no bullshit leaders running important national security projects. It seems like Karp is one of those guys. So I'm happy to have them exist in a world where I know if they aren't building it, then our enemies will. And you certainly don't want them to have an advantage over us. I think the world's changing quickly. And like Palantir is sort of at the center of it. Very interesting to see how this will play out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. I am personally an investor in Palantir. I've been an investor for about 3 years, I would say at this point, and it's become a lot more clear to me. I originally became an investor during the initial FinTwit hype. As everybody's learning about these companies, they're trading at like $20 a share. It's obviously trading at over $100 a share now. I started doing some research into it. I was fascinated by the ahead of the curve AI there. AI was not something that was permeating our everyday lives then like it is now. I've become a lot more intrigued by the company over the last few years. I did have the chance to visit the Palantir building office that's in DC. I actually was right outside of Alex Karp's office. I wasn't there that day, but that was pretty cool. And so just to be able to meet their team, I got to meet the CTO. I got to meet, Joe Lonsdale, right, and all this stuff. So it was just a very unique experience for me to really get into the thick of it. So this was exciting. Hopefully, again, you're not probably coming out of this video, you're not an expert, but you know at least what they do, right? If somebody asks you, what's Palantir? What do they do? Why should you be interested? This should be a good explanation. Just a way to start. I really like the points that were made here by Alex, where you pointed out they really are not just creating a wrapper that's explaining anything to you. It actually has its own personality and its own opinions, and that's what makes it valuable, right? I think Penny, your side of like the secrecy's gone anyway. People are becoming, more accepting, right, of these areas. That's also bullish for them. So you can combine all these things for a winning formula, and when it has, right? It's up, probably 50% this year in a year when the S&P 500 is down, and that's pretty hard to do, and only special companies typically can attain something like that. So this is a great start, everybody. Click over the next Palantir video if this is something super interesting. If you think Apple's an interesting company and maybe that they're dead or not, go watch our last video. That's a good one. And we'll see you on the next episode of Tech and Tea. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Goodbye.